The winter of 1944 in the Ardennes Forest was bone-chillingly cold, a freezing darkness where even your breath seemed to instantly turn into ice. On a snow-covered battlefield on the outskirts of Butgenbach, Belgium, a deathly silence blanketed everything. A battle-hardened German SS officer stared intensely through his field glasses at the American lines. At the edge of his vision, the snow-capped ridge looked completely undefended, projecting an almost eerie sense of peace. His orders were absolute: smash through the American line, seize the crossroads, and clear the path for the 6th SS Panzer Army. The men preparing to charge with him were elite Panzer grenadiers, hardened by 3 years of absolute hell on the Eastern Front. To these ruthless veterans, the shivering American infantrymen dug into the trenches ahead were nothing more than fresh replacements. In the minds of every German commander present, this was destined to be a one-sided slaughter. However, what awaited them was not a conventional defense, but a devastating weapon system that would rewrite the rules of modern warfare. It required no futuristic C-5 technology or heavy machinery ahead of its time. It required only one thing: cold, ruthless mathematical calculation and a new way of thinking about extinguishing human life efficiently. Over the course of the next 8 hours, American artillery would pour more than 10,000 lethal shells into a narrow kill zone. But what truly shattered the German offensive was not just this terrifying density of firepower. It was an ultimate terror they had never experienced and had absolutely no way to defend against. Every single shell, fired from dozens of different artillery pieces miles away, slammed into the same patch of earth at the same instant. This was the American artillery tactic that made enemies tremble, the time on target strike, famously known as TOT. This tactic completely flipped traditional artillery warfare on its head. It was a masterpiece of slaughter engineered by mathematicians at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, using nothing more than pencil, paper, and slide rules. It left the once arrogant German infantry cowering in their bunkers, describing the bombardments with trembling voices as catastrophic. Even General George S. Patton called it the fatal sledgehammer that drove the steel spikes into the coffin of the Third Reich. Truly understand why the time on target tactic was so revolutionary, we have to win the clock back to the First World War. In the blood-soaked trenches of the Western Front, the vast majority of soldiers were torn apart by artillery shells. The numbers were sheer madness. On the first day of the Somme, British artillery dumped over 1.5 million shells onto German positions. Yet, this apocalyptic firepower hid a fatal flaw. Traditional artillery always gave the enemy the precious gift of warning time. When a World War I battery prepared to obliterate a target, the very first shells to fall were arranging shots to calibrate the trajectory. These initial impacts broadcast a clear message: the Reaper is about to land exactly here. Any veteran, hearing that distinct whistling sound, would instantly burrow into reinforced underground dugouts. Because of this physiological drive to survive, even massive bombardments often failed to wipe out the defenders. When the shelling stopped, Germans would emerge from the earth, set up their machine guns, and mow down the advancing infantry. The mathematics of survival were brutally simple. If you had even a few seconds of warning, your chances of living skyrocketed. Traditional artillery always delivered that warning. What if there was no warning at all? What if all the shells landed at the exact same time? In the early 1930s, Majors Carlos Brewer and Ward created a ground-breaking institution, the Fire Direction Center, or FDC. This was a genuine tactical revolution. In the past, every artillery battery fought its own isolated war. But with the FDC, all firing data converged into a single, unified central hub. It functioned like a highly precise brain, simultaneously controlling dozens or even hundreds of cannons. An American artillery battalion could now meticulously calculate the exact flight time of a shell from every single gun. They could perfectly balance out differences in range, elevation, and weather. They could calculate exactly which second each gun needed to fire so that every shell would strike the target at the same instant. Let us step into that smoke-filled come and post to see this cold-blooded machine operate. These officers were not mechanically cleaning gun barrels. They were at blackboards frantically working out incredibly complex calculus formulas and ballistic parabolas right now. Try to wrap your head around this logic. If a shell from one gun takes 30 seconds and a closer one takes 15. Ordering the far gun to fire 15 seconds earlier means both shells hit the enemy at the exact same millisecond. In an era devoid of computers, coordinating dozens of batteries in a live battlefield was a near impossible miracle. You had to account for wind speed, air temperature, altitude drops, and even the heavy wear and tear of gun barrels. The Americans pulled it off through math soldiers in the rear using specialized slide rules and firing tables. They could rapidly convert raw coordinates from the front into highly precise firing data in under 3 minutes. The Achilles, he loved this tactic lay in communication. If there were no eyes at the front, the net was a blind bear. Thus the forward artillery observer emerged as the most sensitive nerve ending of this deadly killing machine. These young lieutenants and sergeants carried heavy radio sets into dangerous zones just meters from German lines. In the sub-zero Ardennes, with fingers turning purple, they used calm voices to read strings of numbers for death. The Americans built a rigid doctrine that any battery within range receiving a request had to respond immediately. By stark contrast, the German artillery system was rigid and agonizingly slow compared to the American one. A German response might take 15 minutes, but the math-driven American system compressed this to under 3. On an open battlefield, those 3 minutes were the absolute boundary between life and death for the soldiers. Let us freeze time again in that bone-chilling dawn of December 1940, for within the village of Butgenbach. This unassuming village became the absolute choke point strangling the powerful 6th SS Panzer Army. Defending it were the exhausted men of the 1st Infantry Division 26th Infantry Regiment right now. Facing them was Hitler's final strategic gamble, which was the elite 12th SS Panzer Division Hitler-Jugend. These young brainwashed killing machines charged like wolves through snow shielded by Panther and Panzer for tanks. German commanders believed they could slice through thin American lines like a hot knife through butter. But they had no idea they were stepping into a dead zone woven entirely from pure mathematics and steel. Brigadier General Clift addressed the American artillery commander ruthlessly bypassed protocols using the F to C authority. He took over the massive artillery networks of the 99th Infantry Division and the entire 5th Corps. A staggering 23 independent artillery battalions, 348 heavy guns were under his command. In the rear, the massive 155mm long tom cannons were the very first to fire. The immense recoil shook the frozen earth, then closer 155mm howitzers unleashed fury. Then the 105mm light howitzers joined the chorus and finally, the frontline heavy mortars fired. Hundreds of shells of different calibers fired from different locations carved horrifying arcs across the sky. Because of the precise calculations, these hundreds of shells smashed into the ground in the same fraction of a second. The SS Rupes, sprinting through the snow, had no idea the Reaper was hovering directly above them now. There were no ranging shots and there was no piercing warning whistle to tell them what was coming. 1 second the only sounds were ink treads on ice, then the very next second the entire world collapsed. This was not scattered explosions, but hundreds of suns violently detonating at the exact same moment. Massive fireballs swallowed formations and shockwaves, flipped tanks weighing tens of tons easily. This destructive power delivered a nuclear strike to the psychological defenses of the German veterans. Those who had survived the ruins of Stalingrad and Kursk completely shattered in this moment. In interrogations, SS prisoners spoke of the American artillery with trembling voices as incomprehensible. They despaired because without a first explosion to trigger muscle memory, there was only annihilation. 1 second you are talking to a comrade, the next your entire platoon has evaporated completely. If the TOE actor completely locked the enemy's escape routes in the dimension of time, another top-secret technological marvel turned the battlefield into an inescapable slaughterhouse in the dimension of space. This was the absolute killer weapon classified as highly secret, the proximity fuse, or VT fuse. Traditional artillery fuses work clumsy. An impact fuse detonated only when it's mashed into the ground. In the thick snow or deep mud of the Ardennes, the shell would bury itself before exploding, the earth absorbing the deadly shrapnel. A-time fuse relied on complex mechanical clockwork to set the explosion time. In the extreme tension of combat, miscalculating by a single second meant the shell exploded harmlessly high in the air or slammed into the dirt as a dud. But the VT proximity fuse completely changed the rules. It was an incredibly precise, miniaturized Doppler radar insanely stuffed into the nose of an artillery shell. American scientists shrank an intricate radar transfer to the size of a water glass. Enduring 20,000 gs of acceleration as it fired, the fragile miniature vacuum tubes inside miraculously continued to function. As the shell flew, the nose continuously emitted radio waves toward the ground. The micro-radar coldly calculated its distance to the Earth. When the shell reached approximately 30 feet, the fuse automatically triggered a spark. This meant the shell never needed to strike the Earth. It detonated violently in the air directly above the enemy's heads. Tens of thousands of white-hot steel fragments cascaded down in a furious, cone-shaped storm of metal. For infantrymen lying flat in shallow trenches or hiding behind tree trunks, this was an unavoidable rain of metal. In the past, hugging the dirt helped you survive shrapnel bursting upwards, but now death rained from above. This vertical downpour of destruction turned every attempt to drop prone into a laughable gesture, transforming foxholes into open-air graves. This technology was so lethal, the military treated it as a sacred treasure, keeping it under the strictest secrecy. It was initially banned in land battles out of fear German engineers could reverse engineer a dud. It was exclusively issued to naval anti-aircraft units to combat kamikaze planes over the ocean. However, in December 1944, during the darkest hours of the Battle of the Bulge, General Dwight D. Eisenhower finally lifted all restrictions. He unleashed this caged technological beast onto the battlefields of Europe. When artillery shells equipped with VT fuses perfectly combined with the millisecond precise time on target tactic, the killing efficiency skyrocketed. It was a unilateral, highly efficient, industrialized slaughter. American observers spotted a German infantry battalion moving across open ground. When they called in a TOTs, tricarmed with VT fuses, an incredibly eerie scene unfolded. Hundreds of shells simultaneously detonated in the sky. Not a single shell wasted its energy on the dirt. All explosive power converted into a downward sweeping hurricane of steel. After a 3-minute barrage, American infantry cautiously scouted forward. They were completely stunned. An entire German infantry battalion lay neatly dead in the snow, as if reaped by an invisible giant scythe. Not a single man survived. They were frozen in the exact postures of trying to hug the earth for cover. In another strike near the Saar River, a TOTber, using proximity fuses, cold-bloodedly harvested the lives of 700 German soldiers in less than 5 minutes. This was the flawless integration of pure, emotionals as mathematical algorithms and cutting-edge physics applied to extinguishing life. The wheels of time rolled forward to March 1945. During Operation Plunder, the Americans amassed a staggering 2,070 heavy artillery pieces. Across miles of front lines, a dense forest of gun barrels pointed straight at the opposite shore. Under the unified command of the FDC, they fired at a horrifying rate of 1,000 rounds per minute, pouring 1 million shells onto the German positions. When the first massive wave of TOT strikes landed simultaneously, it was as if the earth was swallowed by a violent earthquake. The reinforced concrete bunkers the Germans thought would keep them absolutely safe were utterly pulverized in a single instant. This was not the blind, inefficient blanket bombardment of World War I. This was a meticulously calculated, surgically precise, yet unbelievably violent instantaneous annihilation executed by elite mathematicians and Artel Immerlern. The American artillery, by fundamentally altering firing sequences and building a lightning-fast command network, redefines perceived fire. They proved that in the meat grinder of modern industrialized warfare, the most terrifying weapon is no longer the heavy tank or the strategic bomber. It is the inescapable web of death woven from boring mathematical formulas, dense map coordinates, and invisible radio waves. They took the act of killing, once filled with chance and heroism, and coldly transformed it into an exacting precision science. From the freezing Ardennes Forest to the breakthroughs along the Rhine, these young American men used this tactic like a sledgehammer. Even the famously arrogant legendary American commander General George S. Patton had to put aside his pride after seeing this tactic. Patton wrote that when all armies get this shell with the funny foos, we will have to devise a totally new method of warfare. Patton's words hit the nail on the head. This was a crystal-clear watershed moment in the history of human warfare. On that freezing morning in Butgenbach, when the first wave of shells landed, the traditional infantry charge was permanently ended. The era of war, defined by bayonets, flesh and blood, was ruthlessly crushed into the dust of history by pinpoint calculation. This is the true story of the United States Army artillery in World War, to a hidden code of war driven by rationality. What ultimately decides the victor is the quiet tents in the rear, where an invisible revolution of the mind pushed destruction. If you want more hardcore breakdowns of history, earliest miscalculations, smash that like button and subscribe for more battlefield strategy. I am your strategy observer. I will see you on the next battlefield.